Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I am really excited. I have an epic episode for you guys tonight. I am with Rich Vysion. He is an author and recording artist. I've listened to some of his songs and they're amazing. His book is called From Victim to Victor, and he has come out with this ability to move himself through this victimhood mentality and come out on top. So without further ado, Rich, how you doing today?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it. So, Rich, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, what was the complement of your family, brothers and sisters, and what was it like to be Rich as a kid?
First off, privilege to be on your podcast. For me, being a kid has its ups and downs because my family had very strong personalities. I had 4 sisters and then 1 brother. So It was a lot of different personalities and a lot of fighting. It was very tough to deal with that growing up. I'm grateful that I was able to still manage to hold my head up straight while pursuing my goals, going to school and finding my way. But it had its challenges. A lot of people have that family dynamic that's not perfect. It's just my family was not like the perfect family, but I'm so grateful that I had a family to be able to pour into me.
Have a family, right?
Yeah, I know some people who don't have family, and it's hard for them losing loved ones and things like that. So I think for me, although it did have its tough moments, I really grateful for those tough moments because it really built a lot of resilience in me, just in general.
Awesome. So did you grow up in New York too?
Yes, I was born in
New York City?
I was born in the Bronx, and now I live in Brooklyn, Bridgewood area now. But I've lived in Brooklyn my whole life.
Well, yeah, you must have seen some huge changes going on as far as Brooklyn goes.
Right.
Nice. So, do you go to school in Brooklyn too?
Yes.
I
went to a elementary school out in Brooklyn. My high school was a military-based school, so I ended up being in a cadet program. Was military-based, so it was a lot of exercises and tests and things like that. It did teach me discipline and that mindset of like the military mindset of just like everything has to be in order, the attire has to be perfect, spotless. And so I grew up on like, there's always going to be someone watching you and things like that. And there's always going to be someone who's checking to see if you're doing what you have to do, what's required of you. That really stuck with me because I noticed that I took my personal development and physical health a lot more seriously because I was in that school. The only thing I was able to do was work because that's what the training was. You got to do this. You have to give me 20 push-ups, give me 30. And it's kind of like it teaches you to stick with it regardless, and you have to keep them.
I imagine that discipline still maintained its effect in the classroom too, right? How do you feel like you did? Did you excel?
Well, yes, I did have pretty good grades. I didn't flex or got any classes, so I'm grateful that I was able to maintain, a pretty, good GPA. In high school, I've always been the type of student that had a head on the shoulders. Like I always studied. I always make sure my head was in the books. School was important to me and still is, even though I'm not in school. Just that mindset of always learning, wanting to learn something new. And I'm a book nerd. I have so much books on my bookshelf. I just love to read. I love to be able to learn something that I never learned before and be able to apply it in my life to allow me to grow.
Well, I think it's great. And just from the few songs, the few numbers that I've listened to, they're very intelligent. You know what I mean? So, I know that you're hip hop, R&B, and rap, right?
Well, it is hip hop infused with cinematic style instrumentation, but it's basically a lot of this hip hop boom bap style beats that I'm rapping over, and so that's my main genre, the rap genre.
And that's what I was saying, was that compared to a lot of the major labels, yours is very intelligent. Everything that you talk about in the lyrics, it's not what you're going to hear on the radio. They're not going to hear this on Spotify if you're looking up rap. This is very intelligent. It tells a story. It gives a mindset, and it's really intelligent. I want to give you kudos right off the bat. We're going to go back into your story here. So you graduated, and did you go to university afterwards?
Well, I did go to university, but I noticed that I really didn't know what I wanted. I went to a CUNY school after I graduated from college. The thing is, a lot of people don't know is I never wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to be a writer, a journalist in particular. I think for me, that was early on because of being in a middle school that really cultivated sense of self-expression through journaling. That type of environment helps stimulate me in wanting to be more expressive through words and my writings. I ended up delving into writing a lot more because of what I was taught in school. Just being able to express myself through writing different prompts, like how did your day go, and just being able to write about it. Just something for me mentally where I just felt liberated to just be able to express myself in a way that I felt like I didn't before. When I went to CUNY school, I went to City Tech and I took journalism. After that, I didn't get good marks, so I ended up flunking out on that college. And then after that, I went on a hiatus to find myself. I didn't really know what to do in regards to what to do professionally, because my whole thing was to be a writer, a journalist.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, after I got back from taking a break away from schooling, I ended up going to the orientation for this school. I think I was listening to a radio ad and something came up about a music school. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. It ended up being Institute of Audio Research, which I ended up like begging my mom, like, can I go? So I went to the orientation. So we were back and forth, me and my mom, which is like the biggest turning point in my whole career, because I ended up switching paths of wanting to be this journalist and then wanting to be this rapper. I didn't know at the time I'd be a rapper, but I just fell in love with poetry. I just wanted to try it out. It was more like an engineering school. But I said, like, let me just try and see how I like it. We were back and forth, back and forth. It was fun. It was at the point where we were both getting heated. It was getting loud. I just want to do something that I loved. And then she was like, well, stability. I know, like, it's different where her mindset, because of the fact that she was born in a time where stability was important. And me, as a new generation, I'm thinking I want to do something that's fun or create my passion. For me, that's passion. And I just didn't want to live a life where I was chasing a career that I didn't feel fulfilled at. The main thing about myself was I wanted to do something more conducive with what I've been gifted at, which is music. Long story short, I ended up convincing her to take me to this orientation in the city. And we went. It wasn't until I was in the school where I started putting out my first 2 records that something shifted in her psyche. I was so determined. After I went to that school, my whole life changed. Not the thing that the school did in particular, but just me being able to find a home of, okay, I love this. Be able to use the studio, learn about engineering. Like, this is something that I felt comfortable with doing. And it wasn't until then I'm like, wait a minute, I found my passion. And after that school was done, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? So I didn't do more schooling after the audio school that I went to. I just said, I'm going to stick to my music and I'm not going to do this college thing. It was not for me. Mm-hmm. And I made a vow that I would chase my music dreams. And, 5, 10 years later, I'm still pursuing my music because that's what's been always keeping me grounded. And it's helped me realize that, that I have a message to share with people of hope and resilience and that they're worthy of being here. That's something that continuously remind myself when I am in my darkest moments that I have music to help me process these things and in hopes that it will help other people process what they're going through as well.
Exactly. And that's the whole reason for this podcast, really. It's about people like you that have overcome adversity and they can listen to people like you converse about it, talk about it, and you give nuggets of wisdom, things that you did, like you pursued your music when you knew that was the thing that you needed to do. That was what was driving you. And I was thinking about when you said that you were going for journalism and you being more of a creative. I knew that before you even told me, I knew absolutely that wasn't going to stick because because journalism is a formulated writing. There's a formula that you have to follow in journalism. I'm like, yeah, I know he's going to go more creative than that. So when you said you decided to leave CUNY, I kind of knew that was happening. And because I've did it myself, I've kind of got a parallel to you in that after sophomore year, I realized I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I left and worked for a year. And I took some classes at the community college just to stay on top of it. And then I went back and I had a drive to finish at that point. It's kind of like go into the world, figure out that I didn't want to do that. All right, let me go back to school, take on something else, and then I'll finish with gusto and go from there. Then I ended up going and get my master's 5 years later. So I got that. I wasn't in a military school, but I was in the military for 9.5 years. I understood exactly what you were going through. But yeah, 4 years, 6 hours a day. Your military school for high school, was that like live-in? Was that boarding? Were you boarded there?
It was required in the school.
Okay.
As that program.
So you went back at home. You had to go in uniform, do everything.
For the school, yeah, it was a program they built in because you're part of the school. They made it mandatory to be in the cadet program.
Cool. That obviously did something for you. I can imagine that sitting down, writing your book, but also writing your lyrics. It takes discipline to be sitting there and having an idea. It might be a fun, hard work, which is you never work a day in your life if you love what you do. I still know it takes a lot of discipline. The other question I had for you was that you going into music, you found out that was your passion. Did you have any kind of musical training before you went to Institute of Recording?
So I just went in as a newbie, didn't really know anything about audio engineering. I don't know what made me just be bold and jump in the water without a life jacket. But I just kind of...
See, my big message to everybody is if you're going to change your life, you need to do things that are hard. That's why it's called life-changing challengers, because people have challenged themselves to change their life, stepping into something that you have no idea about. Even if you enjoy your life, but you want to step up, get that better job, start a new career, do something, is that maybe on the outside of it is taking on something that you know that you probably never would have thought of, but kind of looks cool, right? So I'm an endurance coach. I coach people to do marathons and ultra marathons and Ironman triathlons. The idea that I've taken people that have no training at all, and now they're doing these big, giant races all over the world. I've seen some dramatic changes in people, from confidence to weight loss to fitness to getting over semi-terminal illnesses through endurance sports. You found your way through music. And I think that's just as important and just as incredible. You got through and then you decided that you're doing your music, right? You decided that that's it, straight line. I'm focusing on music. About what year was that when you got out of ILR?
I don't know. I think it was 2009 for 2017. It was a big gap, but I definitely was in my early 20s. So it must have been over 10 years.
Okay. All right.
Years ago or so.
Were you able to jump into music and make money from music right away? Or did you find yourself having to temp first while you were making music? How did that work?
I haven't really made more than $100, and that's just being completely
it's fine.
Real, because I'm still also building my fan base, and I think that's the thing about music, being an artist. It's taking humble beginnings, and it's really about sticking to it long enough to see the results. as long as I've been doing music. I started when I was, to be honest, a lot of people don't know, I really started doing this when I was 17, writing and things like that. But seriously, 5 to 10. But it's always been on and off because it was an 8-year gap where I lost myself, not knowing exactly how to establish myself as a household name artist that is able to build a sustainable career. But I think for me, it's still been difficult because I haven't been doing a lot of paid gigs. A lot of the gigs I do are for free just to get exposure. I have landed a big gig in, which I'm excited about, which is in the Delancey, which is in the next month. So that's a paid gig, and it does rely on people buying at the door and buying tickets in advance.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I'm learning now, that what it takes to actually sell tickets online through Eventbrite, and a lot of the stuff I'm learning in real time. I had to do the same thing for my listening party, although it wasn't a paid event. I just did it for free to share my music and have a good time and share my stories about my music. And for me, it was experience of learning how to leverage, my music, like kind of like my showmanship in my music in regards to my music. I have not gone to the bigger stages yet. I know that I will get there eventually, and it does take time. It's been a journey. If it wasn't for my love for the music, I would have gave up a long time ago, because I know a lot of people give up when they don't see inkling of the light at the end of the tunnel, because they're on it now. And I had to swallow my pride, even though I'm impatient. I want the money now. However, it takes time. A lot of people have been doing this 5-10 years, and people might say overnight success. Sometimes overnight success is 10 years, and still longer to get to where they are finally able to reap some of the benefits of sticking in and so long and being resilient, and their approaches to chasing a goal and chasing a career. It's not easy, and I think that's what I want to instill in people who are watching. Is whatever goal you have in your life, it doesn't come easy, but if it's worth it to you, then you can achieve anything that you desire. It just takes hope. It takes resilience. It takes just being able to have the mindset of, that never quit mentality of hey, that grit is going to come. Just because it doesn't come right now doesn't mean that that goal is never going to be fulfilled or come to fruition. And that, for me, speaks volumes to where I've been a couple of years ago when I wanted to quit my music, because I wasn't seeing the rewards. I wasn't seeing the money. I wasn't seeing the results. I was doing a lot of free gigs. I told my coach I want to not go out to perform as much because I'm spending so much money on travel and my headliner, so I'm not going to be get paid for doing a local gig. So for me, it was a lot of times where I doubted myself because I didn't think my music was resonating, or even to the point where people would want to book me and pay me for a live show. And now next month I have my own first set, and it's going to be a paid show. I'm excited to be able to sell tickets and have people support, because I've been waiting for that for so long. And it's now I'm I finally got someone to help me be able to reach out and get that gig, and it does take time.
There's plenty of examples where people say, oh, he's an overnight success, where they didn't tell you that he's been working up. He's been actually doing it for 14 years. I can't think of an artist in your genre, but the one that comes to mind to me is Matt Rife, who is a comedian. He did small clubs and then was doing TikTok and Instagram to get his name out there. And it took him 14 years until he finally got his first gig that is big right now. Rich is going to be at the Delancey, and that's 168 Delancey Street, New York, 10002. And it's 5:45 p.m. Doors open at 5 p.m. That's on January 4th, a Saturday. No reason you can't go out. Check out Rich at the Delancey for all of you in the New York area, or if you happen to be visiting after New Year's. So the Delancey, and I'll make sure that this is in the show notes, 5:45 is when his set starts, but the doors open at 5. So make sure you get there at 5, get a drink, and then Rich will be on stage at 5:45. Check that out, and we'll make sure that it hits our socials. He's got a great little flyer on his website at richvysion.com, and we'll go through that here in a minute. Listen, if I was to record this and put this out there, and this is for everybody else out there, I usually publish twice a week, usually on Tuesdays, Fridays. And because of the number of interviews that I do 4 interviews a week. This episode probably wouldn't actually get published until second week of February. But for you, and because you're hitting an awesome show, and it's your first time getting your headline, I am going to publish this on Christmas Day. And make sure the thumbnails and some of the artwork is going to be partly from your flyer, if that's all right.
All
right. So I'm going to make sure this goes live on Christmas Day. People will have 14 days before your show. They could take a look at it. They'll get some things in socials so that maybe we can get more people out to the show. For all of you listening out there, let me just tell you, go onto his website, richvysion.com, and that's Vyson, and listen to some of the tracks. That's Iowan, my bad. Listen to it and listen to the lyrics. They are really amazing. And the cinematic music that he's got in the background, the beats, if you can get to his SoundCloud page, check out some of the other ones because there's some great stuff out there. But all right, there's my little commercial break about Rich and his headlining show on January 4th at the Delancey. Let's get back into the story. Or what have you been doing to make money?
Yeah, I mean, I work an 8 to 5 job. I'm a family business. So that's been really helping me to sustain and put towards the music. And right now, that's been really my only thing. I have quite a few copies of my book, which we'll definitely be speaking about shortly. And also, I have merch, Misfit shirts that I sell at my gigs as well. So I just been hustling.
Exactly, hustling. So yeah, that's exactly what you got to do. And that's what everybody says. Hey, you also hustle. And then finally something picks up. And hopefully that's going to be this gig for you. You went through this phase, this 8-year phase. Can you tell us a little bit about what was going on at that point?
To be honest, 8-year after my hiatus, it was really a hiatus. I wasn't doing much music. I was doing stuff more in the background, but I wasn't really putting myself out there. A lot of people don't know that I had a victim's mentality. I had no sense of self-worth. And I think that's the main reason why I gave up on myself during those 8 years after I dropped my EP, which was released, I believe it was 2015. So about a little over 8 years ago when I dropped my first project. And also because of some of the negative criticisms I got from that EP, I really started to spiral into depression during the time that I had put out that record, in a space where I had people in my school who were intentionally making derogatory comments about my music that really hurt me. And during that time, I thought my music was good. Like, I didn't think anything else. And people were telling me otherwise. And to people in particular, they would just do, I think one or both of them, cyberbullying. It was awful. And, I say this because it started off where I didn't really understand it. I was like, yeah, your music trash. Oh, you want much of nothing as a rapper. This rapper's better than you. Why wouldn't you just give it up? This person will throw your CD out the window. Awful. And I had to sit with all of this stuff bubbling and things on the internet and all of this stuff. It was just like all these comments. And I'm like, where's this coming from? I just felt so much negativity coming towards me for my music. I was to the point where I was looking at myself, I don't want to do this anymore. I felt like a chore. I'm just doing it just to do it. And it felt like I can't get a break. I'm putting out music and it's getting trashed on. There were people who were supportive during the time. And the thing about that is I decided to deflect that because a lot of the negative voices took my presence in my life, unfortunately. So I had to dig deep within myself and say, okay, what's true, what is not true? And what was true for me was that I wasn't enough. that was the statement that I chose to believe. It was the correct statement that was true for me. My mind wanted to believe that. And it was something that, now I know because I've done so much inner work. And it's like
Yeah.
for me, looking back, I'm like, I believe so much stuff that people said, and I put my self-worth in other people's hands. And I lived a life where I was always the victim of every single thing. I took a lot of self-reflection and people speaking life into me, going into music classes and music communities and personal development communities to realize like people actually saying, yo, your music is dope. I need to hear more of this. This helped me even during the time I was going through all this. What really saved my mentality and my mindset was I met someone, I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. He was from Canada and he visited my church. He was probably a preteen, and I ended up exchanging, at the time I also was mentioning that I did music and things like that, and we were just having a conversation. So I ended up swapping social medias with him, and long story short, I ended up getting a message from him on Facebook the night that I met him. Yeah, I met him there once. And then I came back home. So they told me, look at my Facebook. So when I got home, I went to my account and I went on my Facebook Messenger, and Ryan was like, yo, your YouTube saved my life. And I'm like, what? Because at the time, I didn't know that anything I was doing was really resonating with people. I didn't even know what he was going through. The thing about that was I had to really discern, okay, everything else that people were saying, yeah, I used to believe it, but this is evidence that I'm here for a reason. And I think that's the reason why I kept going also, was because he gave me the evidence, like my music is helping someone get to the other side and be here. And I'm like, man, if I ended up losing myself to all that negative banter, I would be so lost in depression and still dealing with suicide ideation because I didn't know how to cope with people telling me that my music wasn't good enough. And he says that, and my whole life changed. I ended up taking my music so much more seriously. I ended up kind of like working like on my music with urgency, like, okay, I gotta get this out here. I wasn't really putting out anything. I just sat on music, left it on the shelf, felt empty. I was fulfilling the 8 to 5 type of I'm working, but I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't happy. I was empty because I wasn't fulfilling my purpose. And I think all along all those years, I took that moment to realize, wait a minute, this is the evidence. And I started to pull a lot of the stuff that people were saying about me. Hey, I'm going to write about this. I'm angry. And I started using it as fuel for my music. I will put it on my laptop. This person said this, and I will screenshot it and save it. Not because I'm cynical, but I use that as fuel. Like, okay, you said XYZ. Look where I'm at now.
Exactly.
And that's how I use it. I just use it as a stepping stone to just continue forward, because I feel like life is, a game of chess, in the sense of like, I always think about what's my next, 2-3 moves. I started putting my music out, and I started to reap the benefits of like the power of being able to share my story and have other people reflect that is helping them.
That's exactly right. I just saw a short on YouTube, or it was Facebook. This woman went to AGT, America's Got Talent, and she wrote a song that was basically all the negative comments she ever got on Twitter. Putting out music, she took all those comments, wrote a song, and got to the next level in AGT because she wrote the song about all the negative comments. I thought it was hilarious. But it was, so she took all that negativity, turned it into positivity, and then got the next step in her career right there. I thought it was cool.
Wow. That's so inspiring.
Yeah, you used it. You didn't use it. You didn't, I don't know. You might have, because I didn't listen to every single track, but you used that as motivation, negative to positive motivation, and to turn it into creativity. The opposite of war isn't peace. It's creation.
Wow.
When you talk about war, which is people trolling, trying to take you to battle, it's not peace. Peace is not the opposite of war. It's creation. That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You're able to claw yourself out of that because your community said, yo, Rich, don't listen to those guys because you have saved our lives. You need to keep going. Was this 8-year period encompassing 2020? Was this encompassing through the pandemic, or was this before it?
Yeah, this was before the pandemic, and then the epidemic exacerbated the whole thing because I ended up spiraling back down again. So it was kind of that moment where I was struggling there at that time as well.
I can imagine, because you're probably, are just starting to crawl back.
Yeah.
Now there's you're able to perform, and then all of a sudden,
Yep.
they're not going to let you perform, right?
Yep. That was hard.
I can only imagine. My day job is I'm an IT project manager. People come to me and say, hey, we have this big project we need to get done. We want you to manage it, hire a team, and complete the project, and you're done, right? Then you go and look for another project, and that's kind of how it is. I had just got put onto this new project, and because of the pandemic, they canceled the contract and said, we're just going to wait until after this whole thing is over, and they're just going to start the process over again. By then, I was already into another project, so I didn't get a chance to do that. But because everybody was canceling, I did the same thing. I was by myself the whole time. I could see how really lonely. I was lucky because I just turned it into, I just went crazy on my bike and running and swimming. I live in Tampa, so I had the great weather. That was just me, right? But I can see where, it started in March. It's so cold in New York in March. When did you decide to pull all of your stuff together to write your book?
Yes, the book is called From Victim to Victor, Transforming Trauma into Triumph. This was 3 years in the making. I wrote it in 2022 during the pandemic. The book was inspired by a lot of the things I spoke about, self-worth issues that I was going through, suicidal ideation. I also touch about mental abuse that I was going through with a mentor of mine that I had a falling out with. Also during the pandemic, which was honestly one of those moments where I did contemplate suicide during that time that I was going through mental abuse with her. And it was one of those moments where I was just taken back because I was wrestling with so much that I wasn't really speaking about. I just decided that stuffing everything in versus sharing it was, at that time, the best way to cope, even though it wasn't, because I was honestly slowly dying inside. Another inspiration was a person who I ended up getting a chance to speak to virtually, Steve Ryan, who was also another author. He published his book about love, his moments of depression, and his personal experiences through poetry. And I was like taken back because I'm like, in my eyes, he's all together. He has his own business. He's working for himself. And I read his poetry. I'm like, wow, he's going through this. And that also inspired me to write my own book too, because I'm like, wow, look how he took some pain that he went through. He turned into a purpose. And then that helped me realize my story is important as well. I'm thankful for my mentor. She saw potential in me to write a book, even though she wanted me to do an autobiography. I'm grateful that she was there to inspire the book. It was through that where I was able to touch about mental abuse in a way that can help other people process what they're going through, help other people realize this liberation once you get the healing. I want to speak about healing after the fact that I've been through so much and learn to forgive. And it's not just all dark, stories. There's also enlightenment and empowerment that, hey, I could rewrite a new narrative for myself in hopes that it will inspire other people to rewrite their own narrative as well.
I think that is so strong. The ability that coming out of depression, out of trauma and adversity, you have the ability to rewrite the narrative. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. That's a huge positive. Once you're able to come out of it and you're able to see the sun coming over the horizon, rewrite the narrative, change your life, go after something you never thought possible that you've been passionate about. And that's the way to move forward and put that stuff behind you. Not that you shouldn't continue to work it out. You used words, you used writing. Did you ever do any kind of therapy?
Yes, that was a big part of my story too. And just in general, not even in the book, but more like, I do touch a little bit about it in the poetry book, but I did have to go to therapy during the pandemic because After my bad suicidal scare, my sister was like, you need to go to therapy. This is serious. At the time, I wasn't cognizant of therapy, of what it was, or just how to process stepping into that, because I was living with the mindset of, man can't get help, man gotta stick it up and take it on the chin.
You and I grew up in a time when that's what we were taught, right? You're taught to be an alpha male. Asking for help is a lot stronger than bottling it in and then suffering the consequences later. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich has been kind enough to really open up with us, and very excited to be talking to him again. I'm going to put all of this in the show notes. I have a link to his stuff up there. It's for him. His socials, I'm going to put a direct link to his SoundCloud account, because you got to see some of the stuff. Let me just go a few of these titles, right? Your gangster rap type of thing. This is very intelligent, cinematic rap. He's got The End of Stigma, Gaslighting 101, Mental Abuse, The Last Straw, I Forgive You for Me, and I Made Peace with My Past. Think about the titles. Those titles draw you in, and the lyrics are going to draw you in too. Make sure you listen to some of his stuff on SoundCloud. Then richvysion.com. And From Victim to Victor, his Victor's on Amazon too, right?
Yes, it's also on Amazon. You can get a hard copy on Amazon or the ebook. I have both available.
I'm going to put a direct link to the book in the show notes. You've got all these different ways. And then we're going to put a copy of the flyer in the show notes as well. We'll remove that after January 4th, or we'll just kind of take away the bottom part, just because that picture is pretty sweet. Don't forget January 4th for all my New Yorkers, my people around New York, all my people that are going to spend New Year's in New York. Stick around, go to the Delancey on January 4th, 5:45 p.m. is the set. So get there at 5 p.m. when the doors open, get yourself a drink, and then wait for Rich's set. You'll be able to listen to some of these tracks live. Rich, thank you so much for everything that you said. People have to know that none of this lasts forever.
No.
We have a lot of people that are going through this victimhood mentality. And as Americans, we need to pull ourselves out of it. We've got examples of people that survive and thrive out of this victimhood mentality and depression. So I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate your music and your writing, and you got to keep going. Do not stop, because your mission and your type of music is unique. It's thoughtful. It's heart-rendering. It's important. So I really, really appreciate everything that you do. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and the notification bells whenever we drop a new episode. If you're on Apple or Spotify, if you can leave us a review, I don't even care if it's a good review. You can leave a bad review if you want. All it does is help the podcast evolve and get better. We'd appreciate it. For Rich, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure.
And myself, we thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.